So first of all, good morning, and I would like to welcome you to our panel discussion for today. Thanks for taking the time and walking by. Our theme or our mission for today is to discuss about carbon farming in practice, and we have prepared a panel discussion for all of you because we wanted to bring our lessons and learnings from different projects we had across Europe and how can be, of course, applicable to CRCF. So what we are currently discussing since yesterday, and of course it's not new information for all of you, agriculture is highly affected by climate change. And for sure we have to make sure that, we have to reduce emissions, we have to sequester carbon in the soil. So that means that agriculture is also part of the solution. So across Europe, we have already several projects I would like to discuss with you. I will stop spoiling you for now. And at the last part of the discussion, we'll talk more thoroughly about CRCF. So before we kick it off, I think it's high time that I introduce to you our panel for today. So first of all, we have Dr. Florian Fakes from, he's Head of Global Sustainability from BASF. We also have Andy Biddle, who is leading the Global Carbon Farming Program at BASF. We have Alessia Castelluzzi. Maybe you saw her yesterday at the parallel session that she was also presenting. She's working at Horta and she is responsible for sustainability and carbon farming. And we have Emanuele Piacentini, who is Vice President at Sette Colli, a wine association here in the region. He's producer and he's also owning a winery named Fratelli Piacentini. So thank you all for your time today, and we're very excited to have you all here in this panel. At the end of the panel, we'll have a Q&A session, so make notes, prepare your questions, we'll be so happy to hear your thoughts. So, Florian, I would like to start with you, and we already discussed yesterday about carbon farming, and it's very crucial for Europe. So I would like to understand from your point of view and maybe get some reflections on why carbon farming has become such a centric topic for Europe, and what steps are required to turn these promising pilots into more scalable solutions. Can we test the other microphone? Now, I hear something. Some of them, this is the one.
So welcome everybody also from my side. It's great to have you here. Allow me a few words on BASF before we dive into the topic of carbon farming. As you know, BASF is a producer of chemicals, so that's the industrial side of BASF, and we are all here from the agricultural part. So that puts us in a special position because we understand agriculture, we understand carbon farming, we have own projects on the ground, but we also, with the insights from the colleagues of the holding, we understand the demand side. I mean, a lot of industries are under pressure, energy industry, cement industry and chemical industry, they need to reduce the carbon emissions. Free allowances are being cut. I mean, this is under heavy discussion. But I think it's very healthy to also look at the demand side of things and to understand their logics a little bit. Now coming back to carbon farming. So why is it so attractive and why are we engaging ourselves so much in this? If you compare agriculture to other industries, it has a structural advantage. You can keep up production while sequestering carbon. If you look at other industries, this is not possible. So they have no other opportunities to keep up production, food production or feedstock production, while also decarbonize at the same time. For other industries, this is a really big pain. And I think this is a structural advantage of agriculture to combine the both. And we should not forget, and I think this was discussed in other sessions as well, the co-benefits. Having more resilient soils, having much more stable systems. Now coming a little bit into what does it mean economically. So when we were starting our activities a couple of years back, and we will come to the starting point and the first project in a bit, we thought, okay, what is the overall potential? We looked at the numbers as, in the normal strategy process, and if you think about 100 million hectare arable land or agricultural land in production in Europe. So this is big. If you then assume, give or take, a ton of CO2 per hectare, that is 100 million tons potential. Certainly not every farmer and every farm will join those programs, but at least it has the capacity. So this is pretty big. And if you then multiply whatever number you can come up with, depending on the market penetration, with, let's say, a reference price of, let's take ETS, 75, 80 euros, this is $1 billion or €1 billion market. But to really unlock that potential, a lot of things must happen. And now coming to the details. So that's the high-level view of the business potential that is easy to put on a PowerPoint slide, but making it work requires a lot of work. So first of all, and I think we have heard it also in other panels, every project developer has learned the lessons of data management. Getting the data in, getting the baseline done, making sure everything is according to the protocols. We, for example, use the VM42. So that is the first step. With it comes the education piece. The field of carbon farming and carbon accounting is super complex, and if you talk to others in the field that are not totally into it, I think it deserves a little bit of time to educate, to explain, and to make things a little simpler than they are in the papers. So the data management, the education, this is one thing. The other thing is then to also come up with results fairly quickly. Certification process, getting the credits, so to also give feedback to the farmers, hey, this has resulted in something tangible. And then the last step is really to find the off-takers for the credits. In our case, we always team up with food value chain companies to ensure that there is direct demand, so that we are not piling the credits somewhere, wait for better prices, but really say we make the connection right away from the one that uses the benefit to the one that produces it. So with the reference to CRCF, I think it's absolutely key, and I think this audience discussed it also before, is to establish a mechanism to get constant demand, to take out risk and volatility of the whole system. And these are a couple of considerations from my end.
Thank you very much, Florian, for setting up the stage so clearly. First of all, we had some reflections from different sectors. And nevertheless, we have challenges throughout carbon farming, but as you mentioned, we have also a lot of opportunities as the agricultural sector has this structural advantage you mentioned. What is really important to say also is that we as BASF have a global carbon farming program. You already touched it. And we will come shortly to this one because we have also Andy in the discussion. Andy is leading this global carbon farming program. And this is super important because we would like, or I would like, and I would be so curious to share with the audience here, what have we learned so far throughout these years that you have this practical experience on the ground?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Stella, for the question. We've been running this now for about 4 years actively. 4 years ago, we started our first carbon farming program. We started in Ireland, working on malting barley and whiskey production. Since then, we've moved into Europe. So other parts of Europe, we currently have programs in Germany. We have working with food value chain players in bread production, where we're impacting wheat and following that through the value chain. We're working in France. We've started recently doing some work in Japan, working on rice with some value chain players. And then coming back to the alcohol side, we're also very active in Scotland and England, working again with a malting company that's supplying 70% of all of the malt for the Scottish whisky production. And then in the US, we're looking at CI scores, carbon intensity scores, particularly for biofuels and how that will relate to the emerging regulations that are coming out in the US, particularly around 45Z. But one of the key things that we've learned right from the very beginning is that we cannot do this on our own. We have to involve the complete value chain. We have to involve farmers. Everything starts with the farmer. We have to have them on board as well. And we need our other collaborators. So we need very good relationships with companies that do soil sampling. We have good relationships with companies that give us the models that allow us to do the modeling and the assessment of the savings that we're doing. And also, very importantly, we need certification. It cannot be BASF saying, yes, that 1 ton of carbon has been saved. We need independent third-party validation, auditors who will very, very closely check everything that we're doing and then giving the validation, the stamp of approval at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, it has to be transparent. Everything has to be transparent, and there has to be trust, there has to be confidence, particularly within the marketplace, that yes, indeed, that 1 ton of carbon has been saved, and that 1 ton of carbon has not been sold multiple times. If we can't have that, trust in the system breaks down. The other thing we've learned is that farmers generally are very enthusiastic. They like to try new things. Most farmers that I've met are innovators. They're really, really passionate about protecting their soil, improving the health of their soil, and to leave the land to their children in a better condition than what they found. So farmers extremely, very, very supportive. I think the other thing we've learned is there's a little bit of confusion, particularly in the food value chain, on how to use what we provide and deliver to. Oops, sorry. And there, the whole issue of standardization also needs to be looked at. Another key point is data and data interoperability. We cannot have farmers entering the same data multiple times. So we have to find simple systems. We have to find an easy way in which we can collect the data and make that data work at the end of the day for the farmers. But at the end of it, I think I remain extremely positive. We've learned a lot. Is the system we've put in place perfect? No, it's not. But does it deliver? Yes, it does. And I think we mustn't strive for perfection. If we can do it, then let's do it. And we are trying to do that with all of the partners that are working with us. We're trying to get this off the ground running for the benefit of farmers, for the benefits of the food value chain players, but ultimately benefit for us as society, because we're actively playing a very important role in tackling climate change through these types of activities.
Thanks, Andy. So many keywords or things that I would like to just wrap again up with you. So first of all, we are talking about a non-perfect plan at the moment, but it seems that all of us are willing to help and contribute. So you mentioned, Andy, that farmers are willing to change, and we have also an innovator here, another farmer, Emmanuel, who is going to say to you shortly what he changed. So he's also an example of an innovator on the ground. Secondly, you mentioned, Andy, that data is complex, and we have to find a way so that we make sure that everything is counted once. And for sure, it's not easy, but we cannot do it alone for sure. So all of us have to collaborate somehow. And we have a momentum from what I understood. And also what I would like to just mention and then go to Florian again. You said that we have a global carbon farming program around the globe. We have different programs, different kind of, how can I say, projects. So they are totally heterogeneous. from US to Asia to Europe. But the meaning is the point is one, that there is interest and there are farmers that they are willing to change. So that's for the part of on-the-ground experience, and I would like to come back to Florian for the corporate or the business perspective here. So can we just say that carbon farming is a catalyst that connects sustainability with business?
Yes, we can. And I mean, at the beginning, when you start a project, there is great enthusiasm. There's lighthouse projects. There's also willingness of the food companies to invest a little bit more. But the business must continue under normal business conditions. Yeah? So otherwise, this will not continue. And I think this can. So we run the numbers, not only for us, but you then do a kind of value chain economics analysis if there is enough margin to be made along the entire chain. Yeah? So someone pays a premium or for a credit. There's a distributor in between, there is a farmer, there's a project developer, there is cost with it, soil sampling, MRV cost. Yeah? So you do the normal business case logic in the end. I think what we have learned from all the projects we are doing is that this can fly at a credit price of 70 euros. Yeah, so I mean, below this, it's going to be tight. You can do it for a year or two, but if the margins are too slim, it will not continue. I think we can not expect that players in the value chain continue at negative margins. And if this happens over a longer period, farmers will drop out, other players will drop out, and then I think we have lost the momentum. But I mean, 70 euros, 65, 70 euros, something around this, is actually in comparison to other decarbonization efforts that industry is doing attractive. Now I'm taking the BASF hat on. Yeah? So if you take the cost there for decarbonization, carbon capture and storage, for example, there are prices of 150 to 200 euros per ton. Direct air capture, very, very expensive. Yes, no problem with permanency. But those are the options for the heavy industry at the moment. Yeah? And if you then compare to agricultural credits here, it can be quite attractive. However, the systems are not collected. Offsetting credits are not eligible under ETS. And as long as this remains, there is no constant demand. The moment we can connect the voluntary system that is in the making with CRCF, with the ETS, then I think we can create a stable demand at relatively attractive prices. There is a small caveat though. Public should accept that industry is also getting a couple of credits from outside their own industry. There was a heavy debate a couple of years back with offsetting. So the criticism was the industry should not let other sectors decarbonize and then keep on polluting. That's a valid argument. But I think if we say credits from agriculture, offsetting credits, are one tool out of many that can also bridge a couple of years where it's actually pretty tight also in terms of budget for decarbonization, then I think we can connect the two worlds. And we as BASF, we really hope that the CRCF initiative is going in the right direction. We know ETS is under pressure, but we could also turn this into a kind of positive view to say, okay, ETS and a lot of companies are under pressure, under financial pressure at the moment, so let's open the option space for solutions from the agricultural space that are cost-wise attractive. Will they do the job for industry completely? No, they shouldn't, but there can be one option in the portfolio of measures.
So thank you very much, Florian, because I think it was a very clear answer on how we can blend the needs on the ground with the business perspective here. You heard several data from Florian's point of view on how the pricing can be attractive and what's the limitations. And of course, we have to be, how can I say, more pragmatic than ever to make this scale step by step. And of course, big question is how policy can also help, but this is something we'll touch later on. So thank you very much, Florian. Again, back to Andy, because Andy, you were sharing a lot of things from the ground previously. And I think that after Florian's perspective, makes a lot of sense then to ask you, how can you describe, or how can we say that delivering carbon farming at scale, what can actually involve, what can include? So how can we make it scale?
Yeah, I wish there was a magic silver bullet, Stella, to say, right, suddenly we can scale it. But there are challenges, certainly, but there are also opportunities. Let's start with the challenges. Resource constraints. Programs often require significant time and investment if we're going to implement them effectively. And those additional costs always fall in the main, particularly at the beginning, on the farmer. Because if we're asking the farmer to do something different, then invariably that comes at additional cost. So for example, if we were wanting them to plant cover crops to sequester more carbon in the soil, those cover crop seeds don't come for free, they have to be bought from somewhere. If we're asking them to change a practice, that also requires them to change, in essence, their farming operation. Also comes at a cost, both financial, but also sometimes in a resource way. The other challenge we have is complexity. These carbon farming programs, by their very nature, are extremely data hungry. We need to collect a lot of data. Even before we start a program, we have to set a baseline. So typically we have to work with the farmer to go back 3 years or 5 years to collect data on the crops that were growing on in that field in the preceding years. And that is not an easy task. You know, some farmers have that data readily available in some form of farm management system, but very often they have it in files, on pieces of paper, and we should never underestimate the time it takes for farmers to collect that data. And then also moving forward, once we've done the intervention, we need to continue to work with the farmer to collect data around that particular crop that is growing in that growing season. And then we have the complexity of the MRV. We talk a lot about an MRV, but it is complex. We need data in a specific form in order to feed into the MRV. We need soil sample data, so we also have to get onto farm, collect data. We need to put that into an MRV. And then, of course, we need to bring all of those results together in order to then pass them forward to the certification body. And then maybe the final challenge I have is around lack of transparency. You know, we need more clarity around the use of MRV. We need clarity on methodologies and verification processes. It needs to be clear and simple such that both farmers and value chain players actually understand what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and what it is we're going to get at the end of it. And then maybe another one which I should have mentioned earlier on as a lesson learned. One of the other challenges we have is how do we bring on or bring in the early adopters? You know, at the moment, if I'm trying to describe my most ideal farmer to bring into a carbon farming program, it is not a sustainable farmer, which is, to me, is wrong. We should also be working with those innovators in our industry that have for many years recognized the power of soil health, recognized the benefit of reducing emissions in production. At the moment, they're cut out of a lot of the certification schemes or the protocols. I'm very happy to see that CRCF is recognizing it and are giving us some leeway to bring those early adopters on board. I would like to have seen it for much longer in terms, but at least some of those early adopters are being brought in. And then my final challenge is confusion. Confusion, particularly in the food value chain, around what it is they should be doing to be accounting for their Scope 3 reduction, and how programs like what we run, like CRCF is going to deliver in the future, how those programs can really help them in accounting for the really positive things that the food value chain are doing to reduce their overall emissions. But from an opportunity side,
Thank you, Andy, because I was waiting for this.
we should come to that. And I alluded it to earlier on, and Manuel will mention it, I'm sure, in his talk. But farmers are always interested in anything they can do to improve the health of their production system. So what is it that they can do to improve their soil health? When we talk to them about soil health, we see their faces light up, they smile, they get really, really energized around those sorts of activities. So in many ways, from an opportunity perspective to scale, we're pushing a little bit at an open door with farmers around recognizing what the benefit to their farming operation is going to be from a carbon farming program. And if we can somehow get some early finance on the table as well to help them with those additional early costs in moving to a new way of farming, then again, I think no problem in scaling from a farmer perspective. And then also from a farmer's perspective, if we're doing a value chain project, we're also, through the very nature of that project, getting the farmer more connected with the purchaser of their crops, and the farmer is being able to see how improving the quality or the CO2 footprint of their crop is then benefiting the customer of theirs, the person who's purchasing it, in the production of the final product. And I think then maybe finally, I think once we have a credible science-based certification system in place, and I'm looking very much also to CRCF to further help us here, then we should be able to start mobilizing other types of financing for climate action in agriculture. So I'm personally optimistic that we will be able to scale this, but we should remember that there are certain challenges which we still have to address as we move forward.
Absolutely, and it's also worth to mention that, of course, we as BASF are also exploring this. We're also taking this journey. And that's why it's nice to share with you how we feel about this from what we learn on the ground. So if I could wrap up a bit Andy's answer about challenges and opportunities, of course, we have resource constraints. You mentioned that very clearly. We have complexity that we have somehow to tackle through a better, how can I say, system or a better ecosystem. And by discussing years with you about this, we're trying to be as close as possible to farmers to make that as easy as it gets. Of course, transparency is also a topic. What about the early adopters? This is also a great question. What about pre-financing them? It's also a great topic that we'll discuss about it later. But there is also light in this discussion, so it's also some opportunities here. So farmers, of course, they are willing, as we said, to just make something new. And of course, there are also some success stories happening on the ground. And before I go to the second part of our discussion, where I will ask Alessia and Emmanuel about several things, I would like to have a final question to Florian, because we mentioned, or Andy mentioned already, the collaboration in Ireland with Burtmold. So I would like to understand, or it's nice to reflect more about this with the audience. What was this project? How this started, and why was it special?
Yeah, thanks, Stella. And I mean, this was presented last year in Dublin. Yeah? So we started a project, a carbon farming project, the first one in 2022 with Burtmold, a global malting company, one of the biggest. And we did this in Ireland with barley. Yeah? So the idea is to team up with a partner that also is not only expecting a final credit, but joins us on that journey. Yeah? And we were able to generate the first insetting credits, so VIUs, exactly around the Dublin conference. You presented this, Andy, last year. And I think it's super important to work with partners at the beginning that are also flexible and are a little bit open for extra loops, yeah, and learning cycles and feedback loops. I mean, this came also with side effects, not only getting the first VIUs, and I will tell you in a second about the amount of carbon we could store. But it comes also with side effects of supply chain transparency. Yeah? So once you have the data in the hand, you can say, okay, I mean, now I can see the better farmers, I can see the healthier soils. It comes a lot of, there's a lot of side benefits. What we were able to generate was 2.3 credits per hectare, which is pretty high. Yeah? So when we saw the results, we thought, wow, this is on the higher end of the corridor. And I think we were tempted to take this as a new benchmark, yeah, for the other projects. Yeah? But then I said, okay, let's be careful. Maybe we stick rather to a conservative number for our scale-up plans with a ton or 1.3 tons per hectare. Yeah? Because if you are so enthusiastic about the first successes, it can also lead to too high expectations. Yeah? But I mean, if you now calculate the carbon savings to a ton of barley, it's a saving of 90% of carbon. So this is really remarkable, and I think it's also important to talk about these success stories publicly. Yeah? So because then, as you say, you have the opportunistic view on things despite all the challenges. Yeah?
So it works. It
works. It works.
It worked. And I don't know how many people of all of you last year joined the summit in Dublin, but we had the opportunity to discuss it very, very in detail. And also have partners talking about that, because it's a collaborative effort. We're not doing this alone. And we're trying to just say it again and say it again. It takes a lot of partners together to make it happen. So I have 2 points here. First of all, Florian mentioned that, we generated the 2.3 tons CO2 per hectare, which is very close to net zero, and this is highly impressive for sure. But I think that before we jump to a video that we have prepared for you, Andy, maybe could you describe this value chain? Because I think it's worth to mention who is part or who was part of this journey.
Yeah, well, we were lucky. It was a short value chain, but who was part of it? Well, of course, the farmers were part of it. They were the integral part of it. They were growing the barley. The barley then went to a malting company, and Bourmont, as Florian mentioned. But it was done slightly differently because the end partner was a whiskey producer, a very specialized whiskey producer in Ireland that traced the bottle back to the field, not even the farm, the field. So their unique selling point was a bit like French wine, where they link it to the soil, to the terroir. For this whiskey, the marketing around each bottle was taste the field. The taste in this bottle of whiskey is really being developed around the conditions in which the crop were grown. So when the grain came off of the farm and went to the malting company did something very different from what they normally do. They malted it on a per field basis. So the barley was segregated on a per field basis. But at the end of the day, the players in that chain, they could all benefit from that 90% reduction in the carbon footprint. And if you can ever get hold of a bottle of Waterford whiskey, I really recommend you do, because it tastes absolutely fantastic. And no, I'm not employed by Waterford whiskey.
No, he's totally independent. Yeah. But that really shows the power of collaboration here. It was, and I just wanted to point that out, that it was a lot of parts into this chain. So this was something that happened last year, and for this reason, would like to show you a video and make things even more tangible. So not only the final product that was produced in a more sustainable way, but also give you some testimonials throughout the project. So I would like to ask the audiovisual team to press the button for me and play the video.
Okay, so I'm James Irish, Agronomy Manager with BASF Ireland. We're here today in New Ross, County Wexford, in the field of malt and barley destined for Bort malt. Our carbon project initially started here between Bort Malt, BASF and Waterford Distillery. In Ireland, our latest collaboration enables both companies to effectively measure and reduce their carbon footprint through BASF's unique carbon platform tool. Our programme also aims to deliver soil health, grain quality and quantifiable benefits to the end user.
Neil Conway, Head Brewer and Director here at Waterford Distillery. We're in operation 9 years now. This is our 9th year of distillation, and our core range of projects is producing single malt Irish whiskey. Yeah, what makes it unique is that we focus on flavour, and that flavour comes from the raw material. In our case, it's barley grown at single farms right across Ireland from different terroirs, taking them into the distillery as single entities, seeing what flavours come from each single farm, and then maturing them in 4 different types of wooden barrel to produce a single malt whisky. Farmers play a very, very significant role in what we do at Waterford Distillery. Because we want to promote Irish tillage farming, we only use 100% Irish grown barley to produce our single malt whisky. So with collaboration with Bort Malt, these guys source the farmers for us. We invite the farmers into the distillery here once we produce their spirit using their grain. We invite them into the distillery. We have an annual growers gathering where we invite the growers in. We give an award for the best barley grower of the year. So there's a lot of engagement with the farmers. Our biggest supplier is our raw material, which is our barley source. So in collaboration with Bort Malt, we're looking at how each individual farm's carbon footprint influences our own footprint at the distillery to produce single malt whisky.
My name is Declan O'Hanlon. We're farming here in the southeast of Ireland, just outside New Ross in County Wexford. We supply to Dial School of Dine for Bort Malt and in turn for Waterford Distillery. We've been growing malt and barley for generations, and we would have originally been with Minch Malt onto Bort Malt, and then in 2016 Bort Malt approached us about supplying Waterford Distillery. So the project sounded very exciting, so we jumped at the opportunity. Quality barley is massive. If it doesn't meet spec, it doesn't get over the weighbridge. In our case, if it doesn't get over the weighbridge, we'll bring it home and feed it to our animals. So about 3 years ago, we were approached by Waterford Distillery and Bort Malt to see if we'd be interested in doing a carbon project. And the first stage of that was to do a deep soil samples. Bort Malt sent out somebody and they went to all our sites where we have different pockets of land, took all the samples, and that was how we got into it initially. Found it very interesting, the process involved in it.
Declan is the 6th generation of his family here at the farm, and Declan wants to set up this for future generations to come. The starting point for this is to gather baseline information on where Declan is at the moment and what interventions he can make and measure to improve this going forward.
So I hope we managed to give you a glimpse of what this project involved and how this was manageable. So we wrapped it up, the first part of why carbon farming is important, challenges and opportunities, and the first, how can I say, reflections of how we feel about it from the ground and also from a business perspective are already covered. We already presented to you a milestone of a carbon farming project in barley. And I would like to jump now to another crop. So we're talking about now perennials and something, for me, my favorite crop as an agronomist, grapes. So now we'll come to Alessia and to Emmanuel. So at this point, it's time to present to you another success story happening in Italy. So we are coming in the region. From Ireland to Italy now, and we're talking about a European-funded project named Plutos. So first of all, before Alessia will give us an overview about the project and we'll have Emmanuel sharing his thoughts, I would like to introduce you first Alessia more thoroughly. So Alessia is working at Horta. And what is Horta? So Horta is a company that is working around digital decision support systems and precision agriculture. It started as a university spin-off and is part of BASF Agricultural Solutions Digital Solutions. So Alessia, you have been heavily involved in the project and you were part of it from the beginning till the overall implementation of it. So can you just start and sharing with us what exactly was this project and what it involved?
Okay, I think it's working. Hi everyone, thank you Stella.
Don't you forget to have it close to your mouth, because I'm afraid that you are not very heard.
Do you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, and thank you Stella. So I'm here to talk about Pluto's project. This is a European project within the Horizon 2020. So the time frame for this project was from 2020 to 2023. And the project had the aim to study more the financing of the sustainable cropping management. So the aim of the project was to distribute and balance throughout all of the food value chain the value that is created from the sustainable cropping management, and also transparency to keep in mind, and as a value. And so what we were doing, it was to, the aim was to rebalance so the profit that is created thanks to those practices. And this is fundamental to have a more sustainable agriculture from the point of view of the environment, and then also socially and economically, which are the main, all of the aspects are key to have a real progress inside of the agriculture. And yeah, how did the project implement these values? What did we do? So first of all, it was important to have good relations and coordinations within all of the stakeholders of the food value chain. And then actions were taken all across of the European land, and spanning also from different agriculture and food industry sectors. And this gave the opportunity also to combine behavioral innovation and also collaborative business models and services that were data-driven. So we had a sustainable innovative pilot, SIP for short, that took place in Italy, specifically on vineyard. So we got to study the potential of viticulture, and we got to study what were the opportunities that we can take in this sector.
Great, Alessia, thank you so much. So this is, how can I say, the high-level information about the project. So let us zoom in into the vine plots. So what exactly happened and what did you want to achieve?
Some innovations were taken and were implemented and studied in the viticulture. And we are talking about getting alternative ways of payments with measurable outcomes. So the data are crucial for having payments. And yeah, so we are talking about carbon credits for sure, and also payments for the ecosystem services, and parametric insurance. These are the three key elements that were studied. Carbon credits are key for having alternative payments for a general sustainable management, while parametric insurance is useful when optimized management of the crop is not enough to adapt to the climate change and to the changing climate that can give not predictable outcomes. Yeah. So other than this, we also use the specific consultations to create the best management case by case, and this is crucial for to have real results thanks to the strategy that takes place. And also crop-specific DSSs are used to create the optimal management. So we are talking about optimizing all of the inputs to get the best result and yield. And also one of the aim of using the DSSs, so decision support systems, is also to have to decrease the environmental impact and increase the ecosystem services.
Excellent. So I have several questions that throughout the discussion will be covered. I have to ask you a lot about the DSS and how it works because you're the expert here on that. But hold on for a second because as we already discussed, every project has several partners, so we're not doing this alone. So in these projects, particularly Alessia, who was with you? Who were the contributors and the partners?
Yeah, other than us at Horta, the university, Catholic University, had a big was involved, had a big part, yeah, in the project, and thanks to the departments, the CRCF, that is a research center on technology, innovation, and finance services. And then also the Department of Sustainable Crop Production that was involved in the studies and in the promotion and communication. And then there is also the Sette Colli Wine Producer Association, which I leave to you to present.
Thank you. I will be very delighted to do so. So we had academia, as mentioned by Alessia. We had also partners, and we have also a wine association taking part on this. So today, as mentioned, we are super happy to have here Emanuele Piacentini. Just before I go to the first question, Emanuele, let me also share a bit of you and also talk about the wine association. So first of all, after talking with Emanuele, the association is based in Giano, and it's the Piacentino region. Excuse my Italian, I'm trying to learn. And it brings together 24 wine-producing farms. You are covering more than 500 hectares, and you're producing around 1.5 million of bottles annually. And trust me, the wine is beautiful. So after the session, we're happy to have you at the table. Maybe you will get a glass of wine if you're fast enough. So, first of all, you have a mission. You have a mission that you promote both wine and also you protect the territory, which was something mind-taking when we had the discussion together, because this is not about only producing wine, but it's also about the future generations to come and how we can do it. So, Emanuele, first question to you. Why are carbon accounting projects useful for viticulture?
Hi to everyone. Okay, carbon accounting projects and carbon credits are useful for viticulture because they help wineries measure, reduce, and enhance the climate impact of vineyards. And sustainable agricultural practice become about environmental and economic benefits. Vines like soil plants absorb carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, and a part of this carbon is stored in biomass of the plant and in the soil. Soil organic carbon. And by managing the vineyard with a regenerative practice, for example, cover crops, reduction of tillage, increasing in biodiversity, carbon storage in the soil can be increased. And there are also chances to achieve circularity by returning improved residues to the soil by shredding and incorporating them in the soil, and, which increase soil health and fertility, and is more efficient use of technical means.
Okay, so you just reflecting about the environmental benefits of this project and why it's important for you. So I would like to come back to Alessia now, because as mentioned, Alessia was very deep into the project, and I would like to understand then, reflecting to Emanuele's points, what then were the innovations that took place in this pilot?
Mainly there were, let's say, two types of innovations. The first type is involving the DSS that, as I said before, get to optimize all of the seasonal management and so get to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then there were sustainable practices. These, in this case, were decided field by field, according also to the story of the field and the soil and every, the agronomic aspects were considered in the consultancy. And so these practices were involving the pruning residues retention, also grassing into the interrows, so also reducing the soil tillage in the interrows, and also distributing some organic manure in some cases. Also cover crops inside of the interrows were sown. And so these practices got to increase the soil health, general soil health, but also fertility and soil carbon in soil. And then the carbon accounting schemes were followed by the farmers, and this created more value that were equally distributed then into the all of the food value chain, that in this case included the farmers of the Sette Colli Association and then the winery of the association. Yeah, and the Sette Colli Association, thanks to these schemes, were committed to maintain the sustainable management until 2030, so from 2021 to 2030.
Thanks, Alessia, for bringing more clarity. So DSS played a crucial role in these sustainable practices for sure, and already cover crops were mentioned in the discussion, and of course the carbon credit schemes played a vital role so that the Sette Colli Association had a long-term plan about this.
Sure.
So back to you, Emmanuel, because I would like to understand more. We had already discussion together when we got to know each other. You are a farmer and you also are vice president of the wine association. So what motivated you to start with something else and to participate in this project?
In the recent years, sustainability has become an increasingly important topic in wine sector for buyers and consumers. And reducing the impact what does not mean improving production practice, but also strengthening the position of the wine in the market and enhancing the link with the territory. And it all started from a need of our colleagues, and he had the necessity to have a hut at the weather station. So to be able to monitor with scientific data the seasonal trend. But the economic effort was quite important, so he decides to involve a whole group and to buy several DSS and MAS. And the idea was accepted and was liked, and many of us immediately understood the potential of the project. First of all, mapping the whole municipality, have a whole series of useful data to improve production, adopt innovative practice to improve soil fertility and structure, and why not, maybe even save some phytosanitary treatment, and so we started. And also in this context, this project has contributed to increase the value of our production, especially in terms of communication and promotion. In fact, during the wine tasting or during the evening when we presented our association, and we presented also the common project of precision agriculture and carbon farming, aimed to have integrated attention to environment, targets carried out when are necessary, sequestering carbon dioxide and increasing organic matter. We noticed the consumer response positively to this situation, and they appreciated our efforts. Certainly, I cannot say at this moment if the sales have increased significantly or if the people come looking for us for this aspect. Also because it must be said we are only at the beginning of our journey. But another interesting aspect is the shift of the consumer interest from an exclusive organic approach to a broader vision of environmental sustainability.
So first of all, there is a vision. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for sharing your thoughts. What also was very captivating when we discussed with each other is that you mentioned that climate change was the initiator of making all of you think about the future and honestly change something, do something different. Because climate change, you mentioned, is really, how can I say, is highly affecting different parameters, and it's highly unpredictable. So all of you in the Wine Association wanted to make sure that somehow you become more resilient in the future and you do something different. So you mentioned that you were part of this project and you started already, changing things, implementing new practices, getting into, how can I say, this DSS world and being onboarding to new things. And what I also got from your point of view, of course, you cannot translate it into sales, but for me, sounds like you have a competitive added value because you take care about the environment and you have also something to say to your potential buyers.
Yes.
So that's great, and thank you very much for reflecting already about that. So coming back to the project overall, what changed on the ground?
The practice adopted in the project have generated agronomic benefits that go beyond the carbon aspect alone. And in particular, one of the most important changes has been the process of digitization of in-year management. And the decision support system has progressively become a tool used in the management, supporting farming in decision-making process. And this is made it possible to improve the precision of field intervention, while at the same time increasing the efficiency and the sustainability of agronomic practice, and in order, above all, to safeguard production. And importantly, the adoption of these tools had not been driven primarily by compliance or certification needs, but rather by the real improvement of agronomic practice and field results. And it has also led to increase and exchange information between us, and we are in a very heterogeneous area with different soils. And we began to compare ourselves more constantly on a different response to the vineyard according to the seasonal trend. And above all, we also helped each other to have an answer to this problem.
So you see it collectively as, how can I say, the heterogeneity of the soils is something that you already see collectively, that it can be challenging, but thank God you're all together on this and you are paying a lot of attention to soil health, because at the end of the day, we're talking about carbon farming programs, carbon credit generation, but what about soil health? So this is important to mention. And now that we're talking about DSS a lot, I would like to go back to Alessia, to our expert, because I would like to give us more clarity about how DSS is working and how it does support farmers from your point of view. We have already heard the farmers' perspective and the Wine Association perspective.
Sure. DSSs are digital tools that collect data, basically, very shortly. These DSSs collect data and transform it to give back useful information, as it could be an advice. So what we do is we connect different sources of data, and these can be standard data sets, and like the emission factor datasets for the estimation of sustainable impacts. And we also have a network of weather stations, but also soil analysis are crucial for all of the estimation for the DSS working. And all of this kind of data, but yeah, it is important to say also that also the farmers directly can input data, and not only on the field operations, but also on characteristics of the field that can be also soil features. And so all of this data that is collected with the digital tool then is converted, interpreted, and elaborated thanks to mathematical equations and also different kind of models that can be also process-based models. And so maybe applicable to different locations since these models represent the process, basically. And thanks to all of these interpretation and models, we can give back different kind of advices to the farmer to give the best management that optimizes both the inputs and the effort that you put into the crop. So these advices can span from pest and disease control to sowing or irrigations. We have a variety of aspects that we want to include since the fields are a complex system. And we also have a tool for the estimation of the sustainable impact, which is crucial to the estimation of the reduced greenhouse gas emission. So we have also different kind of indicators involved into the system. And,
okay,
yeah.
So interesting to know. So if I'm a farmer, I can very easily include into the DSS maybe my fertilization rates, maybe, yeah, more or less diesel consumption, any parameter that is involving in the field, and then everything is estimated, tracked, monitored, and can be, of course, be processed throughout the decision support system, right?
Sure, yeah.
So data collection made somehow simple.
Yeah.
Through DSS. Okay, that's important to know. That's important to know. So different aspects included in these systems. So back to you, Emmanuel, then, because we said right now that DSS played a crucial role, that we can, of course, use technology to track and monitor different kind of parameters. At the end, was it complex for you?
But the implementation was relatively complex, relatively in the sense that for a really young boy, it's not a problem. They interface immediately with the DSS and with the computer. For those a little older, it was not so immediate, but in any case, it was not so difficult, and so much so that the ease of use of this technology has favored the participation of farmers and has made the integration of digital tools in daily activities more natural.
I see. So that's kind of optimistic. So at the beginning, of course, everything new is challenging, but I can understand from what you said, Emmanuel, that at the end it was not a catastrophe, it worked. Okay. So back to you, Alessia, because I would like to understand now, as we can wrap it up, what have we achieved throughout this project? Can you share some numbers with us?
Sure. We got to the estimation of the reduced emissions. As I said before, it was done with the help of indicators and emission factors. The reduction of greenhouse gas emissions were led mainly by the use of the DSS, since the inputs were reduced. In this case, we are talking about vineyard, which is quite peculiar crop among all of the crops that are involved into the DSS. So the most important part in reducing inputs were the pest and disease control, because in vineyard we can have also 20 interventions, 20 treatments with the pest and disease product.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. And so reducing half of the treatments to 10 treatments, it means already a lot. So this was mainly the reason of the reducing of greenhouse gas emissions. And then we have also a soil organic carbon estimation, thanks to the ROTSI model. And this one was led thanks to the sustainable management practices. There were the grassing into the interrows, so, and also the organic matter inputs from the amendment. So we had more carbon input to the soil, and also thanks to the pruning residues that were retained into the soil. So the final estimation of the carbon credits coming from both reduction and sequestration of soil carbon is 6,485 tons of CO2. So it's quite a lot, and it's coming from 116 fields that were registered into the DSS, into the digital tool, and this was accounting for almost 325 hectares.
In 2 years, Alessia, right?
In 2 years, yeah. We are talking about the seasons of 2021 and 2022. Yeah, so after the recording of all of the informations made both from us as two providers of of sensors in general and from the farmers, we used the data to compare with a baseline that was including the cropping management of conventional farms in the area. So this is how we got these big results.
Very impressive, and we're talking about significant emission reductions. And of course, really important and really impressive was, how can I say, that the efforts around disease management and how the DSS also helped in this end. Very impressive. Thanks, Alessia. So we were talking about carbon credits and CO2 emissions reductions at the moment, and I would like then to come back to Andy to understand more how these results were verified and brought into the carbon market.
Yes, Sharon, I'll be quick because I'm conscious of time. So they were independently validated by a VVB, in this case, RENA, and those credits are now registered and held on the Eco2Care voluntary carbon platform. What we have done here is we've followed various standards and protocols. So we have followed ISO 14064 for carbon accounting. We're in line with the VCS methodology for sustainable land management, and that we hope as we move forward with CRCF, we can somehow dovetail this activity that we've already been doing into future CRCF projects. All of this ensures credibility, transparency, and market trust. Very key points that I made at the beginning of this presentation. If we are going to progress this, we need to ensure that the market really trusts what we're putting out there.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for the bridge, because I wanted to go back to Florian now, because I wanted to just ask you, why is it important then, or why are we talking so heavily about credibility and this trust in carbon farming?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is the backbone of a business model, right? So, I mean, if this is fundamentally questioned by parties outside the protocol or the methodology, I think we burn a big possibility. We saw this with agroforestry certificates a couple of years back, and I think this would then create a lot of confusion for the off-takers. I mean, we had discussed this also within BASF. Are those credits credible? And if there is doubts around it, then you would not ask and you would not buy those credits. So I think everybody in the chain is really responsible to make sure that the integrity is fully followed.
So reputation and integrity are two levers of this matter. Thanks, Florian. So very quickly back to Emmanuel then, because we heard the perspective of ourselves as BASF. Why is it important? Why regulations and frameworks have to work even on more on that? For you, Emmanuel, as a farmer and participating in the project, what carbon credits mean for you? So, I mean, the generation of carbon credits, what does it mean for you?
But the project also offers some economic and strategic benefits for the company. In particular, it represents an additional source of income through the sale of carbon credits, and more directly through a better position of wine with the consumer who are sensitive to sustainability issue. And certainly, the sale and the consequence revenue of receivables is a very strategic aspect. First of all, it gives a value to the effort and the commitment of the winemaker. And it can be quantified, it can be given a dimension. It is a stimulus very interesting for a winemaker and winemakers like it. And the second aspect is that we'll have a fair amount of money available that we can use for communication, the use for training without having to burden individual companies, because we can divide this earning between us, so maybe we use the money to grow the entire association.
Great, thank you very much for sharing, Emmanuel. So as we're getting tighter with the timing, I will jump to the last part of the discussion, because we promised that we will touch the practical part of carbon farming, and at the end we will touch the part of CRCF. So the audiovisual team will help me again here to just show 2 Menti questions we prepared for you, because we would like to hear your reflections as well. So I would like to have your voices somehow in this on this stage. So first question for you regarding CRCF. What is the biggest barrier to scaling CRCF? You can scan the QR code or use the code you see on the picture, and you can submit your answers. First of all is cost, and I would like also Florian and Andy, while seeing the answers, if they can comment or if they would like to complement. So we have cost, we have also uncertainty, we have also complexity. Maybe the other microphone we can try. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these, I guess we're not that surprised. Carbon farming is complex. It needs a whole amount of data. Cost, yes. If we're going to change something, it always does come with a cost. And I think maybe also uncertainty. You know, asking a farmer to essentially change their business model that has run very successfully for the last generation, that's a very big ask. And in our experience, you know, we never see, quite rightly, we never see whole farms immediately adapt to carbon farming. They want to try it out on 1 or 2 fields first, see how it really, really interacts with their business before committing. And then finally, maybe my final comment before I pass it back on to Florian. Yeah, MRV. It is so untransparent, MRV. We all have all of us have a completely different definition of what an MRV is, what it should do, how it should be fed into carbon farming programs. So here is a real opportunity, I think, for CRCF, for the European Commission, to get some structure, to get some standardization around a lot of these issues that are appearing on the screen here.
Before we jump to Florian, first of all, I would like to thank you for voting. We have a beautiful word cloud here. I would like now to ask the audiovisual team to give you the second question we have for today for you. So where do you see the biggest opportunity? And then I will ask Florian if he wants to comment on the answers. Where is the opportunity? So where is the light in this tunnel? Soil health, I'm pretty happy to see that, because we heavily touched it with Emmanuel and the efforts on the ground. Another idea, revenue for farmers. That's also a big part. What about resilience, Florian?
I mean, we can look at the challenges, but we can also look at it from the opportunity side, right? So I think CRCF is a good vehicle for harmonization. If we now can connect this midterm to ETS, for example, if we can connect this to subsidies that are paid anyways via the CAP and could reallocate some of those money flows to regen practices, I think we can cover a couple of those challenges. But I think this requires a lot of political support from all angles, from DG Agri, DG Climate, member states, etc., to make this instrument work.
So do we already have touched part of your answers about my first question, like why CRCF is very important for Europe? Do you want to complement something on this answer, or shall I jump already to Andy? What do you think? You made the perfect bridge, I think, eh?
Yeah.
So, last question to you, Andy, and then we're coming back to you because we would like to hear your thoughts on or answer your questions of what you heard today and you learned from our practical experience. So, some comments from what is announced regarding CRCF from you, Andy. What do you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think you know, we've all seen the latest CRCF draft. I think generally from our perspective, we're highly supportive, particularly to see in place a mechanism that allows farmers to choose from: do I do sequestration, do I do soil health, do I do reducing greenhouse gas emissions? And I, for one, because everything we do in the BASF carbon farming program, I was delighted to see that it's aligned with global standards. So particularly the framework which we are setting, we haven't reinvented the wheel. We're using stuff that is already in existence and understood within the voluntary carbon market. Maybe just 2 or 3 very quick points of what I would like to see better. Sorry?
Very quick.
Very quick. From an eligibility perspective, I'd like to see the toolbox as wide as possible. So I think farmers should be able to choose: do I do reduction, do I do removal, or do I do a combination of both? We need total flexibility there. I like the differences in quantification, so the flexibility in quantification approaches that we can use, because that also gives farmers flexibility to tailor participation in a carbon farming program to their local conditions, their local farming operation needs. I also like the co-benefit side, but here we need to see greater clarity. We all know that if we do carbon farming, there are going to be co-benefits in terms of biodiversity, in terms of water use efficiency. Somehow the Commission at some point, though, needs to bring CRCF, carbon credits, and potential future nature credits into line so that farmers can benefit from both. They shouldn't be able to have to choose from one or the other. And then maybe the most area of concern that I have about CRCF, and the biggest concern I've seen from this conference in the last couple of days, is lack of clarity around the demand side. This will only work if we have buyers lined up, if we have a structured framework to bring those buyers together, to bring in the finance that is needed. So maybe I'll stop there in the interest of time.
But of course we can continue the discussion at our table outside, because I can imagine that there's a lot of interest around CRCF, or if you have questions or comments already, we open up the round for you. We would like to hear your thoughts. So I'm very happy to give you a microphone and listen to what you have to comment.
Yes, my name is Isadora. I'm with Nature's Pride. This was very interesting. Thank you. We import fruit and vegetables from around the globe, and we're looking to develop a a program for regenerative agriculture or carbon farming with our growers. And one thing I'm interested to learn is which interventions work best across all your projects, and maybe also which interventions looked really promising but didn't really get the results that you maybe expected.
Who would like to take that?
I could start generally, or then maybe pass it over to Alessia for fruit and veg, but thank you for the question. What is very clear from everything that we are doing, that if you want to maximize the output on a per hectare basis, you have to have a combination of removal and reduction. Removal significantly is the key driver there. So if you were able to plant cover crops, if you're able to switch the way in which you prepare your soil, that is a very good positive contributor to a removal portion of a credit. Reduction, also very key. If we can reduce on an annual basis the CO2 that's emitted per ton of crop produced, and here we're talking about efficient end management, we're talking about maybe digitalization, so we can optimize input on resources. Again, a key component. One of the big lessons that we've learned, though, in terms of disappointment, is that we need to make sure that we pick the combination of interventions correctly. Because if we pick them incorrectly, a intervention that reduces or a reduction in production could potentially affect the amount you sequester in the soil. So you need to be very careful in how you tailor your specific program. But maybe Alessia, from a fruit or vegetable perspective, you have some more.
Well, what we learned is that it is very important to optimize the management other than using regenerative agriculture practices. So the most profit from all of the projects for the farmers were driven by the use of the DSS, which involved less input use. So this is one of the biggest parts. So just to let you know that carbon credits may not be the only answer there, and also there are other aspects to be considered.
Have we covered your question? How do you feel? We can continue for sure outside at the table if there is something else. Another question from the audience.
Hi, this is Fernando from Terra Madre. Thanks for that, very interesting. My question has to do with the credibility, first, of the credits. I think in the tropics, in forestry, there is the question of how you define the baseline, and the question if the forest would have been there without the credits, right? I guess you believe, as most of us do, that in agriculture it's different. The credits are producing a change. So if that's the case, and as a company, as a big company, I guess you have short and long-term perspective. What do you see needs to happen? What is your vision when the farm in a decade or whatever the time no longer gets any revenue from credits, because by the nature of soils and carbon stocks in ecosystems, they saturate. So what happens for a farm that engages in these practices in that mid and long term?
Who would like to start?
Within the Plutus project, we actually made a forecast for regarding specifically, both emission reductions and soil organic carbon sequestration. And we also saw that the soil organic carbon the sequestration rate is decreasing year by year because the soil is reaching a balance. So it's always harder to sequester soil. So the soil organic, the carbon credits resulting from the project will be every year less and less. And this is a known fact, but we can work around this, and I cannot give you an exact number of years that is worth including, but yeah, this is, we're doing the best to get the best results from soil.
But also maybe just generally adding to that, a farmer, in our view, will always be the most important producer of food. I mean, that's their number one priority. Farmers are not suddenly going to become carbon farmers. At the moment, carbon farming is a catalyst for more sustainable production. So yes, they're getting some income to enable them to become more sustainable. I always describe carbon farming as the cherry on the icing on the cake. And Stella says to me, well, what is the cake? The cake is sustainable agriculture. So if we've got maximum carbon in that soil, we should have a really healthy soil. That healthy soil should become much more resilient to the rigors of climate change. So you're enabling the farmer to reset the whole production base on a much more solid financial basis long term, taking in account of the horrors of climate change that are coming down the line. So that should be the key driver in all of this.
I hope we covered it. And feel free to also pass by. We'll be happy to touch it even more. Any other question? We have also 5 minutes left, so I think we could cover at least one. Or if there's no question, oh, we have one. Here in the front. Thank you. The microphone is coming.
Thank you. My name is Augusto. I'm from Portugal. We are developing a biochar project. So I want to ask you, what do you think about biochar as an enabler to sustainability in agriculture?
So who would like to start?
We follow VM42, which doesn't allow very easily for the application of biochar. So we don't generally use biochar in our projects. What do I think of it, though, as an enabler of sustainable agriculture? I think a lot. I think we need every tool we have in our box available to us and to farmers to really help drive soil health, soil conditioning. Biochar does that in spades, and also it's a long-term storer of carbon. So around the permanence issue, which we always grapple with agricultural soils, that is one very strong lever that we have if we were to use biochar. And again, maybe we can discuss this outside. My only slight concern is the mass availability of biochar. You know, when Florian started talking about the potential area we have, we can't get biochar on all of those hectares, but on the hectares we can get it on, then yeah, fully agree, plays a very important role.
So thanks, Andy, and yeah. Maybe we can touch it also outside for a deeper conversation. So for all of us, for all of you that made it and stayed till the end of this session, we have prepared something for you. Here at the stairs, you will find some agendas, some notebooks to remember us and the Global Carbon Farming Program for sure. So again, I would like first of all to thank the panel, all of you for participating in this nice discussion. And we hope that it was clear enough or it was interesting enough for all of you watching us for 90 minutes. We really appreciate that. You can find more information about the Global Carbon Farming Program at the Global BASF website. And of course, we are outside at the table waiting for your questions or your thoughts. So that's it from our end. Thank you very much. And feel free to take a notebook.